Come on, record. Oh, come on. Okay. Oh, there it goes. Okay, entire screen. Share screen. Hi, document camera. Okay, so page 715 in your math book, we're talking about the area of a rectangle. Okay, a rectangle is a four-sided figure with opposite sides congruent. What does congruent mean? Anybody know? It means it's the same. It's equal to. So congruent and same, that's another word you can use for it. So the opposite sides are the same or congruent, and it has four right angles. Using right angle symbols to denote 90 degrees and tick marks to denote congruent sides, label the rectangle below. So what they do is they just put this little square like this. That means that's 90 degrees. So each one of these is 90 degrees. And then to show that the sides are congruent or the same, they use a tick mark. So they just go like this. So I put one there and I put one here. So that when you're looking at this diagram, you know this side is congruent or the same as this side. This opposite side is congruent or the same. If I want to show that these two sides are congruent or the same, I just have to put maybe two tick marks, right? So now by looking at this diagram, you know that this side is congruent or the same with this side. This side is congruent with this side, and you have four 90-degree angles, okay? If one side of the rectangle is 15 inches, what is the length of the other side? Well, it's 15, right? Because the opposite side, we know that that's congruent. So we know that this is 15 inches. Okay? So it's 15 inches. Number two, what is the sum of the four angles of the rectangle? So I have 90 degrees plus 90 degrees plus 90 degrees plus 90 degrees. What's that come up to? 90 and 90 is 180. 180 and 180 is 0. 8 and 8 is 16. Carry 1, 360. So the sum of the four angles inside a rectangle equal 360 degrees. You know how many degrees are in a circle? 360. Kind of interesting, huh? That the degrees of a square is equal to the degrees of a circle. I never knew that. I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, real world link. The Texas state flag is the shape of a rectangle, is comprised of three smaller rectangles. Label the flag with congruent tick marks and right. Well, they did it for you already, so I don't know why they asked us to do it. But as you can see, they're just, you can see that this side's congruent with this side. That's congruent to this side. This and this is congruent or the same. This and this is the same. This is the same. This is the same to this side. And you can see that you have your 90-degree angles. Okay? Okay, turn the page to 716. Okay? Let me make sure this is in the area. The area of a rectangle is the product of the length and the width. So here in this example, this is the length. This is the width. Okay, so area is length times width. And if you notice, you just have two dimensions. You have this side and you have this side. But this is a 2D figure, right? It's flat. It's 2D. It only has two dimensions. It has length and it has width. The area of the figure is the number of square units needed to cover the surface. So when you multiply this length times this width, you're getting this area in here. Okay, like if you had to measure this to get a tarp to cover this area, you'd multiply length times width. You can use a formula to find the area of a rectangle. A formula is an equation that shows a relationship among certain quantities. You can write equations to determine solutions to problems involving area of rectangles. Okay, so here are some examples. So write an equation to determine the area of each rectangle. So if you notice, you have 8 inches and 6 inches. So this is our length, this is our width. So area is equal to length times width, so that's 8 times 6. 6 times 8 is 48, right? And then they wrote out square inches, but if you were to write it, it would be 48 inches with an exponent, which means squared. I don't think most people are going to write out square inches. Okay. And why in the math book? I don't understand either. But anyway, this is what it's going to look like. And the reason that you have this little 2 is because you're only talking about 2 dimensions. That's where that 2 comes from. Okay? Inches squared, because you multiplied 2 of these things together. Okay, here's another one. Here's 4.2 centimeters by 3.9 centimeters. Same formula, area equals length times width. You have 3.9 times 4.2, you multiply it, you get 16.38. So you would write it as centimeters squared. Okay? Again, you have just 2 dimensions. Okay? You're finding the surface area of that, of these 2 dimensions. Okay, write an equation to determine the area of each triangle. Right? Pretty straightforward, right? Area is equal to length times width. Area is equal to 16. M stands for meters times 3 meters. 16 times 3. No, I don't remember this. 48? Yep, it's 48. So area in this one is 48 meters squared. Okay, this one's going to be tricky, right? Because you have a whole number and you have a mixed number. But just to keep it simple, right? Area is length times width. So area is equal to 4 times, or you could just put parentheses, 2 and 2/5. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next page, and we're talking about a square. So a square is a rectangle with all sides that are congruent. So a square is a rectangle. Is a rectangle a square? No, it is not. Okay, so a square, its sides are congruent. Since the length and the width are congruent, so that means this side is equal to this side is equal to this side that is equal to this side. And they're using S because that stands for side. You can write a formula of the area of the square using an exponent, right? So instead of doing area equals side times side, you can do area is equal to side squared, right? Because it's the same number. You're multiplying by itself. So you use this formula for a square and length times width for a rectangle. So here's an example. Write an equation to determine the area of each square. Well, we're going to use A equals S squared. We have 9 inches, 9 inches. This is 9 inches. This is 9 inches. So A is equal 9 squared. So 9 times 9 is 81. So that's 81 inches squared. So when you start getting into area and volume, your units are very important. So you need to be aware of that. Do the math first, worry about the number, and then worry about your units and make sure it's all consistent. Okay, number 4, we have 4.8 centimeters. So here we're just going to take 4.8. They put it in parentheses, squared, right? So when you multiply that, I think you get 23.04. 23.04. So the area is 23.04 centimeters squared. Okay. So that's pretty much the whole chapter. I mean, the rest of it is you just practicing over and over again. But I think you guys are pretty smart. And we don't need to. They just change the orientation of the square. Sometimes they'll come in here and they'll put things on top or put these things inside, right? So you have the area here and you have the area here. So here's the shaded. So just the logic of this one, right? Here's this rectangle here. It says determine the area of the shaded region, right? So you find the area of this, length times width, find the area of the white one, and then you'd subtract the two, and then you would get the area of the colored part. Same thing with this. This is just a square turned on its side. Use the same formula. This is a square, this is a square. You just find the two areas and subtract. Okay. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's go to the quiz. Where are we? Good. I'm going to set you up. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Where am I? Okay, so let's do number 20. 20, Felicia will carpet her rectangular living room shown below. The carpet she selected is sold by the square yard. Can somebody tell me how many feet are in a yard? There's 3 feet to the yard. So which is bigger, a square foot or a square yard? A square yard is bigger. But most carpet is sold by the square yard. Okay, at a cost of $32 per square yard. It's not bad carpet. You can pay a lot more for a square yard of carpet. Okay, to the nearest dollar, how much will it cost to carpet her living room? Okay. And just FYI, later on in life, they usually estimate 10% more because they've got to cut out things for doors and door jams and that kind of stuff. Okay. So if they carpet your house, they're just not going to just take that and bring it to your house. They need a little bit extra. Okay. So this is how we're going to set this up. So we have our length, right? We have our length times our width. We know that area is equal to length times width, right? So I did this problem just to check it before I put it in the quiz, and I am not quite sure what they're doing. I tried it a couple different ways, but this is the closest that I got, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to round this up. We're going to round it, right? Because you have feet and inches. And the first way I did it, I converted it all to inches, converted it back to feet, then converted it to square yards. I didn't come up with the same answer. So, but I figured it out. So what you're going to do is area is equal to length times width. So area is equal to, and we're going to say 26 times 16. Okay? And you're going to get a number. And if you want to use the calculator on your Chromebook, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay? This is more about the process rather than practicing your math. We'll practice your math and your numbers later. Okay? So you're going to get this number. Then you're going to take this number and you're going to divide it by 9. Why would I divide it by 9, do you think? This is giving me square feet, but my cost per carpet is by square yard. So by dividing by 9, right, because a square yard is 3 feet by 3 feet, right? 3 times 3 is 9. So if I take my square feet, divide it by 9, I get square yards. I'll put yards squared here, okay? Well, that gets me square yards, but I still don't know my cost. So you're going to have to take your yards squared times 32. And that'll give you your answer over here. It may not be exact, but your answer you'll know which one's the right answer. Okay. And I'm not quite sure what they did or what I'm doing wrong. But anyway, this will get you the right answer. Okay, that's 20. 21. Daniel drew the following design using congruent blue and white rectangles. So that means they're telling you that this rectangle is exactly the same as the blue triangle. Okay, what is the total area of the blue regions? So if you notice, your blue square the white square is put on top of it, right? It's hiding it. What they want to know is what this area is plus this area plus this area. Okay, so the easiest way I think to do that is to divide this into two rectangles. Okay, and when I do that, now I can take area, right? So your area is equal to length times width. Well, if you notice, they're giving me my length, my width, and then see how this is offset. Well, I know this rectangle right here, I know that this dimension here is 0.9 because it tells me up here. And I know this length is 4.8 minus 0.9, right? Because it's shorter. So I know, let's call this rectangle 1 and this rectangle 1. So here's rectangle 1. The area is equal to 3.9, right? It's 4.8 minus 0.9, so it's 3.9 times, and I know this dimension here is 0.9, right? That's going to give me the area to rectangle 1. Rectangle 2, the area is going to be, I know this dimension here is 0.9, and I know that this dimension here is 2.7. That didn't change because this is the exact same as this. So 2.7 times 0.9 gives me the area of rectangle 2. Okay. Well, I have to add these two together to get this whole blue space. So you're going to add these two together, right? And you're going to get a new number, right? But that just gives you the total of the blue right here. That just gives you the total for 1. So you're going to have to take that number, right? Because you have 2 more. Those are all congruent. You only have to figure it out for 1. So you're going to take this times 3, and that'll give you your answer. Okay? And if you want to use your Chromebook, you're more than welcome to do that. So you'll multiply 3.9 times 9, 2.7 times 9. You're going to add the two together, multiply by 3, and that should give you your answer for 21. Okay? Okay, 22. 22. The table shows the dimensions of 4 rectangles. How many inches wider? Think about this. How many inches wider is the rectangle with the greatest area than the rectangle with the least area? Okay. So we have four rectangles, A, B, and C, and D. We have to figure out which one has the greatest area, and you have to find the greatest and the least. So the first thing we have to do is we have to find the area for each of these 4 rectangles to find the greatest and the least area. I would also recommend we change these to decimals. So 2.5 is 2.5, 4 times 1.5, 3.75 times 0.5, and 4.3 times 2. Okay? So then once you have your 4, you can identify your biggest and your least area. So we're now over here, we're going to go biggest area. So whichever one that is, A, B, C, or D, and you're going to have to write down its width because that's what we're interested in width. And if you also notice, these are in feet. They want your answer in inches, right? So you find that. Then you're going to take your least area rectangle. You're going to write the width here. Okay. But this is in feet. We need to convert it to inches. So we're going to multiply that number times 12. Gives us a new number. Then we're going to multiply this one times 12 to convert it to inches. We get a new number. Okay. And it wants to know how many inches wider is the rectangle. So then you're going to have to subtract the two. Subtract these two. And that gives you your answer. Bunch of different steps in there. Okay. That's 22. 23. The golden rectangle is frequently used in art and architecture. I've really never heard of this. The length of a golden rectangle is approximately 1.6 times its width. If the length of the golden rectangle is about 7.2 meters, what is the approximate area of the rectangle in square centimeters? Explain how you solve the problem. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this. Okay. So we're talking about area, right? So area is equal to length times width. Okay. So there's a relationship in this golden rectangle of 1.6 times its width, right? And they're telling me that this rectangle is 7.2 meters length. So to find its width, I can just take 1.6 and divide it into 7.2. Okay? So when I do that, that tells me that the length is 7.2 meters. And when I do my division, I know that my width is 4.5 meters. Okay? Well, I have them in meters. I need it in square. I need it in centimeters, right? That's what they wanted in, is in centimeters. And I'll get the squared part when I do my multiplication. Can somebody tell me how many centimeters are in a meter? Does anybody know? Close. What does centi mean? Do you know? What does centi mean? That prefix. Centi means 100. So 1 meter, so a centimeter is 100. So a centimeter, so you have 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Okay. So if I was to convert these meters to centimeters, right, I could multiply by 100. Or what's another easy way I could do it? And I don't have to do the math. Huh? Very good. So you're on the right path. So you could add 2 zeros, or you could just move the decimal point, which is the same thing that she's talking about. She's on the right path. So if I take my 7.2 and I move my decimal point, am I going to go to the right or the left? What do you think? Actually, right. So if I take my decimal point, I move 2 places, this is converted to 720 centimeters. Same thing with 4.5. If I take my decimal point, move it 2 places to the right, 1's 2. Same thing as multiplying by 100. I get 450 centimeters. So now I have my length in centimeters and I have my width in centimeters. Now all you have to do is multiply 720 centimeters times 450 centimeters, and your answer is centimeters squared. Okay? Okay. So what do we got? We got like 15 minutes left. So I'm going to let you finish this up. I think you can knock it out. I think it's pretty straightforward. So once you finish this up, then we're done with it. We will have some time tomorrow when we do the Rubik's Cube thing. I'll also give you some time in science because we're pretty much done in science. So I don't want you to stress out. I'd like to be finished with everything. And we should be finished with everything tomorrow. And then we'll be free with the Rubik's to spend some time there. Okay? So once you take the last 15 minutes, fill this out, do your Google quiz. If you have more time, there's an Edpuzzle there in Google Classroom, or maybe your packet. I'm going to stop recording. Stop recording.